Hello again, and I'm so sorry not to post yesterday. It was an extremely full day, and after a pretty intense week, and after Bishop's Council last night, there just wasn't space. But never mind. I'm glad to be back here this morning, and I'm going to read to you something I've written this morning. It's been lovely to have a few hours to read and think today, and I find that waters the whole week. If I can get a little 3 or 4 hour chunk each week to do some reflective study and writing, especially, then, as I think you know from what I've said previously, I find that sustains me. It also makes sense of what's happened during the week, which is a good processing tool, and I commend it to you. Many of you will journal and write as well, and what has become a weekly blog, which is gradually building up into the new book, has become a very nourishing for me way of making sense making sense of life this year. So for better or worse, here it is, and it arises, this piece, from a visit, an actual physical visit I made on Tuesday or Wednesday. It's called A Bishop's Throw. To arise creaking from my desk and head across Salisbury Plain to Warminster yesterday was a welcome escape. I've been folded in an S shape all week, shoulders hunched, legs tucked back into my stool, and while the day was dreich, I felt unfurled. On the radio, as I splashed across the county, Mark Carney, Governor of the Bank of England, was delivering the first of his wreath lectures entitled How We Get What We Value. Having looked forward to a Beatles podcast saved for this journey, I was nevertheless held to the end by his erudition and humanity. Carney was posing the question as to whether the inexorable shift from market economy to market society has devoured the very social capital on which all resources, human, economic, natural, depend. In negating the moral foundations that Adam Smith saw as vital for the market to thrive, Carney was asking whether capitalism had not, in fact, consumed itself. As the broadcast ends, I park up at St Aldhelm's, Bishopstrow, one of relatively few churches dedicated to the legendary 8th century scribe and first Bishop of Sherborne. Immediately inside are two stained windows celebrating tales of Aldhelm, one in which King Ian of Wessex offers his own staff to the saint, promising him land for a church to the extent that he can throw it. One possibly far-fetched, origin of Bishopstrow. And another in which the saint's crozier has turned into an ash tree, the story being that he preached for so long that his staff, placed on the nearby ground, took root. Hence Bishop's Tree. I've given a few sermons of that kind of length over the years. My own is in the car, my own staff is in the car, slung between the handbrake and the boot. But I like the latter tale best, and I wonder what could it mean in such a mobile age for us to live a planted life, one in which we're so settled that we might flourish into leaf. It's too easy to be romantic about pre-industrial England, when the norm was stable poverty for most, and any settled account must balance benefit with cost. But what seems clear is the uprooting of market economics has, when fully grown, detached commercial life from the local and household origins implicit in the word oikonomia. Oikos, as you probably know from when we've talked about parish and so on, is household, oikos. This is what the guild socialists of the early 20th century were seeking to retrieve. Economics at a human and communal scale, in which the perceived medieval embedding of trade within place, faith and family could offer an alternative to the machines of capitalism and communism, both of which turned people into commodities. The familiar narrative is that the Reformation, by privatizing religion and keeping the kingdom of heaven far from this world, brought about the divorce of what Carney referred to this week as the Magi and the merchant. to a degree that would be inconceivable to our medieval forebears. The creation of the Bank of England in 1694 by Act of Parliament arguably enshrined this unmooring of commerce from social and theological context, although, as R.H. Tawney, whose 1926 opus Religion and the Rise of Capitalism is still such a fluent and useful book. Do you know this one? It's a classic. I've got it on the desk, and I look to it quite regularly. This is it. This is the Pelican edition. Really commend this to you. Hero of the Great War, R.H. Tawney, and who laid 30 hours on the Somme, on the first day of the Somme, wounded, and remarkably was retrieved and recovered, I think, by French medics and saved, and went on to be a remarkable Christian economist. This is a great book, very, very well written. Religion and the Rise of Capitalism. One of the architects of the welfare state. And he's quoting, sorry, that was an aside, a philosophy which treated the transactions of commerce and the institutions of society as indifferent to religion would have appeared to those in former centuries not merely morally reprehensible, but intellectually absurd. But it does not seem absurd now, which is ironic, as Mark Carney observes, our unquestioned belief in the supremacy of the market, monetizing all other values, has entered the realm of faith. For him, as for many other commentators, the environmental crisis is what will force a new kind of reformation, upturning the old financial certainties. It must by now be unquestionable that ecology must and will redefine economy in the 21st century. Yet the spirituality of that shift is still very much an open and thereby competitive market, in which the prevailing response is to repeat our former fatal mistake of seeking abstract, unifying ideals that are extracted from any particular tradition. Given that both economy and ecology signify the value of home, our social ethics must likewise land, like Old Elm's staff, in time and place. The ways that endure will be those with the deepest roots. There we are. That's today's reflection. God bless you as you go to ground.